If you want to be a great software company, you have to be only a software company.
In a world driven by software, hardware was a leap Microsoft hesitated to take.
Sony, Sega, Nintendo, they design their own hardware. For Microsoft, that is an insane business to get into.
But a spark of ambition ignited the green light.
An incredibly electrifying moment.
We'd finally convinced Steve. Bill was convinced.
I think Bill did have a view that software running on hardware in a family room could really bring some unique experiences into the home.
And from there, Xbox was born.
This is the Xbox. That's fascinating.
Oh, you're gonna blow up the TV.
It's been a whirlwind since then, a journey of highs, lows, and daring pivots.
Microsoft had done nothing like that before.
And then it became clear that there was just some really big challenges for us.
The response was so negative, and that was when I knew our lack of focus was going to hurt us with our core audience.
Microsoft's quest has been anything but linear, from console wars to inconsistent messaging, all the way to Xbox exclusives landing on rival turf.
So we made the decision that we're going to take 4 games to the other consoles.
Xbox is chasing a vision beyond just console wars. It's on a quest to uniting a divided community under the banner of Xbox Everywhere, a journey towards a $32 billion gaming empire. Now, to truly understand Xbox's plan, let's first look at another game changer, Nintendo. It was the early 2000s and Nintendo faced a stark reality. After losing to PlayStation again, the House of Mario was in trouble. The GameCube had fallen behind and Nintendo needed a new direction. And that direction had a name, Project Revolution. Yes, Project Revolution was the code name of the Wii. Alongside the Nintendo DS and Switch, the Wii was a huge success. By dropping the battle with Xbox and PlayStation, Nintendo launched 3 systems, each surpassing 100 million sales. Nintendo showed that their Project Revolution strategy wasn't just survival, but a masterclass in adaptation. Now Microsoft finds itself at a crossroads much like Nintendo once did. Beaten in the console wars, locked in an ecosystem battle with Sony, Xbox subscription service, Game Pass, was Microsoft's big bet to pitch a Netflix of gaming. And yet, it didn't quite deliver. It hit 34 million subscribers this year, a climb, sure, but not what Microsoft was aiming for, as it was missing its internal targets. And all that as they had shifted focus from console sales to subscription numbers. Microsoft's struggle isn't just subscriptions, though. It's a tug of war for exclusive titles as well, with high-stake gamble, it's not always paying off.
Now Redfall is one big show.
Starfield is not worth your money.
I don't think I've seen anything quite this terrible.
Competing against PlayStation seems a Herculean task, especially now that the PS5 is outselling Xbox 2-1. Their long-awaited exclusive Starfield was off to a good start with 13 million players, but didn't break the top 30 in Europe. And Xbox mobile gaming remains locked behind walled gardens as Apple and Google keep their platforms tightly controlled. And also their cloud streaming potential is still just potential. And with each Xbox console sold at a loss, the traditional hardware sales model seems under threat. Now, with the landscape not looking so rosy, one must ask, what is Microsoft's Project Revolution? Well, their Project Revolution has been in the making for a while now. While Nintendo's revolution was doubling down on hardware, Xbox is thinking outside the box. Ooh. Good one. Because their revolution isn't about the plastic under your TV. It's about going back to a service-first, infrastructure-driven company. It's about building a universal store that will sell games, content, services across all devices. And with Game Pass as the main vehicle and studio acquisitions of major franchises, it's clear Microsoft is betting big as their role of a publisher.
With the addition of Activision and Blizzard and ZeniMax, we're one of the largest game publishers on PlayStation. We're one of the largest publishers on the Nintendo Switch, especially when you put Minecraft into the equation as well. And now we're one of the largest publishers on mobile platforms as well.
In their latest announcement, we hear that Xbox is starting to bring 4 of their exclusives to rival consoles.
So we made the decision that we're going to take 4 games to the other consoles.
Xbox exclusives on PlayStation and Switches. Putting games on rival platforms isn't just strategic, it is necessary, as they have long outlived their usefulness of selling consoles. So this isn't about selling more consoles. This is about reaching every gamer in the world. In fact, the US video game hardware market has hit a saturation point. Xbox key markets are pretty much matured. As Microsoft's gaming chief Phil Spencer said in an interview, "I don't think we're doing a good enough job finding new players. We found 200 million global households that will play console games, but that number really hasn't changed in the last 5-6 years. This is a market ceiling issue more than anything." And the solution is Xbox morphing from a console to a gaming platform. Microsoft's focus is on business model diversity, not on monotony. Our business model is not just about hardware or first-party game sales. It's a diverse business model that leads to the business success that we're seeing today, says Spencer in another interview.
Maybe you happen in your household to buy an Xbox and I buy a PlayStation, and our kids want to play together, and they can't because we bought the wrong piece of plastic to plug into our television. It just seems that these artificial constraints that the industry might put up for near-term kind of business dynamics, in the long run, reducing friction for our customers as an industry has to be at the top.
And so, Xbox Everywhere isn't just about survival, but a masterclass in adaptation. And with an eye on a $32 billion gaming revenue by 2030, their Project Revolution is finally boldly unfolding. And here's how. You know, making games is hard, but so is making hardware. It's a double challenge that Microsoft has faced head-on.
Consoles are actually sold at a loss in the market, so when somebody goes and they buy an Xbox at their local retailer, we're subsidizing that purchase somewhere between $100 and $200 with the expectation that we will recoup that investment over time through accessory sales and storefront.
It's a model also known as razor blade model. It's a massive task that can be broken down to 7 steps. Research and development, mass manufacturing, selling subsidized hardware, recouping costs through game sales and subscriptions, marketing to keep pulling people in, developing exclusives to make the platform a must-have, and lastly, creating a virtuous cycle that uses all these steps to make things cheaper over time. And the crux here is recouping costs through game sales. In the early console days, when the gaming market was still smaller, exclusivity wasn't just beneficial, it was essential. It allowed games to stand out and pushed platforms to innovate. Sony, Sega, and Nintendo made drastically different hardware, which meant that exclusives not only attracted gamers, but showcased what each console could do. Sega attracted players with Sonic, Nintendo with Mario and Zelda, and Sony, along with Microsoft, they kept pace with their own iconic exclusives. A good example of how consoles defined the gaming experience is Bart vs. the Space Mutants. This game had to be adapted to each console's limitations. The Sega and computer versions each had their own control setups. Nintendo was able to show a slightly better UI than the Genesis, and the graphical quality differed from console to console. The same game, but a different feel on each system. So exclusives weren't just games, they were showcases. And still today, they are part of a broader marketing strategy rather than a direct profit source. For instance, Halo 5 is an Xbox-only hit. Shadow of the Colossus stays on PlayStation, and esports favorites like Dota and League of Legends are PC-only. And so exclusives not only kickstart sales, but also drive consumer loyalty, and all that over a span of generations of consoles. The first generation of consoles first revolved around basic games like Pong. The second generation then introduced cartridges, with Atari leading before a market crash. The third generation was then marked by Nintendo Entertainment Systems, which revived the industry with our beloved Italian plumber and eventually sold 60 million units, using the computational power of 8-bit processors. By the fourth generation, the landscape had shifted, with Atari leaving and Sega entering the market with Sonic the Hedgehog.
Get Joe Montana free, Pat Riley free, Buster Douglas free, Super Monaco GP free, or Columns free. What Nintendo don't.
With a marketing slogan of Sega does what Nintendo don't, it sold over 30 million Genesis units worldwide. Sega, however, did not win the war, as Super Nintendo sold over 50 million units. And then...
Mom know about this?
Who?
PlayStation.
In the 5th generation, Sony enters the scene with game-changing exclusives like Final Fantasy VII. Previously developed for Nintendo, Sony secured this franchise for its PlayStation, which used CDs rather than cartridges and supported the latest 3D graphics. By the 6th generation, the PlayStation 2 continued to set records, thanks to exclusives like Shadow of the Colossus, Final Fantasy X, God of War, and many more. And then...
So shall the multitude be joined together and...
The Xbox is everything The Rock is.
And then enters Microsoft. They entered the console wars not just to compete in gaming. The PlayStation 2 wasn't just a console. It doubled as the cheapest DVD player on the market. To Microsoft, the PlayStation was seen as a multimedia threat to their computer business. But the Xbox came with a killer app, Halo. Despite selling only 24 million Xbox units to PlayStation 2's 158 million, Halo launched as a gaming titan, now with over 80 million copies sold globally. And Sega, well, they couldn't stand a chance and ceased to be a player in the market. The Dreamcast was its latest console. And by the 7th generation, the console wars heated up. The Xbox 360 closed in on the competition with a strong lineup of exclusives and strong sales, but the unexpected winner was the Wii. Remember Project Revolution? The Wii was playing a different game with motion controls and family fun. By the 8th generation, Sony swung back hard with PlayStation 4 thanks to an arsenal of hit exclusives, while the Xbox One lacked the good games, required gamers to always stay online, and they hit an identity crisis as it was pushing the Kinect motion tracking device that no one wanted. In the end, Xbox One, with a few big games like Forza Horizon and Halo 5, sold less than half as the PlayStation 4.
I bought an Xbox One just to play Halo, and I have had the worst time with it.
And then Microsoft shifts strategy. Microsoft will not be using console shipments as its primary metric for success. Now it's all about player engagement. Hence the Play Anywhere program in 2016, the first move to bridge Xbox and PC by letting you carry over saved games, add-ons, and expansions. In a leaked email, Phil Spencer is again very determined on engagement. It's clear. Xbox consoles have always sold at a loss, with losses up to $200 per unit. Recouping losses through exclusives, well, we know Xbox failed to continuously deliver on that front. The community demands a better release cadence and shouts, just release better games. But Phil thinks otherwise.
I see commentary that if you just build great games, everything would turn around. It's just not true that if we go off and build great games, all of a sudden you're going to see console share shift in some dramatic way.
And then Phil made it very, very clear.
We're not in the business of out-consoling Sony or out-consoling Nintendo.
There it is, 3rd place. If Microsoft is served the least by the traditional console business among the big three, then their February 2024 announcement hits the nail on the head.
So we made the decision that we're going to take 4 games to the other consoles.
A change in strategy which serves only one, the consumer. Who wouldn't love their favorite games available on all platforms, offering options, especially for those who can't afford to buy all the consoles in the world? Well, it turns out that the Xbox loyalists weren't too thrilled about the news.
I know you got a little life and you left.
So these sweaty, stinky donkey monkeys they're losing their shit because, like I said, Xbox is going third party as if it's the end of the fucking world. His son drew a picture of them together. First of all, imagine your son drawing Xbox executives.
Microsoft is retiring from the console business.
Everyone needs to shut the fuck up.
And what's their biggest concern? Putting exclusives on other platforms might lessen the special appeal of owning an Xbox. Okay, duly noted, but here's the thing about exclusives. Again, it made more sense back in the days, but today, platforms are less about hardware and more about the ecosystem. So the whole rationale for exclusives, which is driving hardware sales, seems a little bit archaic, doesn't it?
Console exclusives aren't pro-consumer. They're pro-console war nonsense.
Exactly. And if we take a look at the PC market, we see there is a choice and competition, each competing with deals, discounts, and freebies. It's about value, not device-exclusive games. Console makers could learn a thing or two from the PC market and stop hiding behind exclusives, but focus on improving hardware features. And for the record, a gamer who buys a console just for exclusives doesn't really invest in the ecosystem and is, to the company, actually a very low-value customer, because true value comes from, remember, engagement. But some console makers don't get it and drive the exclusivity game way too far, so much so it feels even like a monopoly. Sony's strategy, particularly in Japan, is a prime example. They have cornered about 98% of the high-end console market by locking down third-party titles exclusively for themselves, preventing Xbox from hosting these games in Japan. It went so far that 11 members of Congress were pressing the Biden administration to take action on the PlayStation-Xbox console competition in Japan due to an imbalance in the Japanese video game market, and that despite 20 years of investment, Xbox still has a negligible 2% share of the high-end console market. And this whole exclusivity shebang impacts gamers directly. Remember the uproar over PlayStation's Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War? Extra loadout slots, tier skips, perks that gave only PlayStation players an unfair edge. It was an unfair move that was criticized as blatantly anti-consumer to PC and Xbox. So exclusives have their place and their time. But with Sony driving the game too far for Microsoft, it was either a situation where it accepts a slow death, or they changed the rules of the game entirely. If it was up to Microsoft's CEO, he would get rid of exclusives, as he has no love for the battle over exclusives in the industry. Putting software on more platforms and not fewer is the Microsoft he grew up in. And with this ethos in mind, Microsoft has been on a buying spree to become the dominant publisher on the planet. It acquired Mojang, ZeniMax Bethesda, and Activision Blizzard King for a total of $75 billion. This isn't about just buying up competition, but about expanding their playground. Take Minecraft as a case in point. Even after acquiring it, Microsoft kept Minecraft cross-platform, making it now the most successful third-party game on Switch. And with Activision Blizzard, Microsoft got them all. Franchises from Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Overwatch to Candy Crush and Farm Heroes. Microsoft said the net impact from its Activision Blizzard deal was $2 billion in revenue and over 200 million monthly active users across Xbox, PC, and mobile. It's a deal that made gaming Microsoft's third largest business category next to Office and services. And as we all know, wrapping up this deal hasn't been smooth sailing. The Federal Trade Commission raised eyebrows over monopoly concerns. So Microsoft's push for non-exclusivity might be, after all, about easing regulatory concerns and avoiding being regulated. They just don't want to be seen as a monopoly. And Sony, well, they weren't fans of this deal at all, fearing it would upend the competitive balance. Really, Sony? Well, Japan's competition regulators were quite okay with the deal and approved it.
We were number 3, number 4, and with now Activision, I think we have a chance of being a good publisher, quite frankly, on Sony and Nintendo and PCs and Xbox.
One question stood out during the FTC hearing, though. If the Xbox business isn't meeting targets, why is Microsoft spending nearly $70 billion on Activision? To which Phil responded with, to expand in a meaningful way onto mobile, the world's largest gaming platform. Already in 2022, Microsoft made headlines when it announced an Xbox mobile gaming store, with the Activision Blizzard deal being key to their mobile efforts.
Xbox is going to achieve its goals of being a global gaming platform for the over 3 billion people who play video games. We need to be relevant on mobile and on console and on PC, and we think Activision is an important part of that.
It is an uphill battle, though.
Why? Because mobile gaming is huge, worth $200 billion now and eyeing a $700 billion by 2032. By bringing big names like Call of Duty Mobile and Candy Crush to the table, their goal is to challenge Apple and Google's tight grip on mobile gaming. Apple usually blocks other stores and payment methods on its devices. And yet, Europe's new Digital Market Act is making them and Google open up. Apple's response? new rules. A 50 charge per developer after 1 million downloads, and still taking a 17% cut with other payment methods. Microsoft called this move a step in the wrong direction, and is still hoping for the much-needed change. One thing Apple has changed though, it opened up its App Store to allow game streaming apps, which were previously only accessible via a web browser. To Microsoft, that's a step in the right direction, as their cloud gaming ambitions are huge as well. Released in 2019, Xbox Cloud Gaming aims to bring games to markets like Africa, India, Brazil, and Asia, all under the umbrella of democratizing gaming globally. Xbox Cloud Gaming's growth, as Phil notes, is booming mostly in markets that are never going to be console markets. I talked about this extensively in another video where I interviewed the CEO of Antstream Arcade about the future of cloud gaming. All you need to know is that Microsoft owns Azure, the cloud infrastructure powerhouse, and has entered a 10-year partnership deal with NVIDIA in 2023 to bring hit Xbox and PC games into the cloud. Leaked documents during the FTC trial also hint at a handheld device for hybrid cloud gaming. Xbox President Sarah Bond said in the latest podcast,
"Is delivering the largest technical leap you will have ever seen in a hardware generation, which makes it better for players and better for creators and the visions that they're building."
Might this be the handheld device? Or perhaps their all-digital diskless 2 terabyte Xbox Series X? Time will tell. But one thing is for sure, hardware won't go anywhere. No worries. This diskless one sparked some speculation that Xbox is ready to move on from supporting disk-based games, but Microsoft said it will follow what the customers are doing and deliver the things that the customers want. And honestly, most of us buy games online. Consoles are the last tech with disk drives. Not many manufacturers are making these drives anymore, which means that they're getting more expensive. But in any case, Spencer assures that getting rid of physical, that's not a strategic thing for us. One very strategic thing, though, is their content and service category. Microsoft's core strength has always been services, software, and subscriptions. So it made sense when they introduced the Game Pass in 2017, a subscription service for a monthly fee and access to hundreds of games. Sounds great, but the subscription business, just like game development, is really, really hard. People sign up, but then opt out, or they churn because their credit card expired. So every time Xbox funnels in new Game Pass subscribers, you have an equal amount falling out of the bottom. While it reported to have 34 million subscribers in 2024, it's miles away from hitting its goal of 100 million Game Pass subscribers by 2030. And that might be because Game Pass for Xbox Cloud Gaming on mobile hasn't taken off yet. But as Phil said in an interview, their goal isn't to make everybody a Game Pass subscriber anyways. But the buzz about an Xbox Cloud Gaming App Store for iOS could bring in fresh new game subscribers after all. So, Microsoft is changing gears. And guess who's following suit? Sony. Sony's pivoting towards multi-platform more and more. It wants half of its games to be available on PC by 2025, and PlayStation chairman Totoki said its first-party PC releases will be part of an aggressive growth plan. A no-brainer move, looking at how Helldivers 2 did on PC. And Nintendo? Well, they keep expanding their entertainment empire too, with theme parks and movies, all to push outside the traditional console business. Now, these moves might not be on the same scale at what Xbox is doing, but the objective is the same: finding new consumers and new money. But Microsoft is in a prime position, because they've got something else up its sleeve: OpenAI. They don't own it, but they own it. Microsoft invested $13 billion in OpenAI. Their new text-to-video AI model, Sora, creates lifelike minute-long videos from simple text prompts, like this one, or this one, or this one. Minecraft gameplay footage, simulating digital worlds. Sony and Nintendo will soon have to play catch-up. But the real competitors aren't Sony and Nintendo anyways. They never really have been. As Phil says, these traditional gaming companies are somewhat out of position, because the real face-off is with giants like Google, Amazon, and Apple. And so Microsoft plays the long game, to be the top dog in console, publishing, mobile, cloud, content, services, and of course, AI. This was never about a console war, but a content war. And the Xbox? Just a stepping stone to a much bigger vision. An all-encompassing gaming universe. Xbox everywhere, anywhere, whenever you want. This is their very own Project Revolution that'll keep Microsoft on top as a $3 trillion company.